everybody, Jesse Fresco, Hardcore Bloodshot here with an In Case You Missed It episode. I got myself here a book that's been out for a very long time, and this compendium recently got re-released, I think about a year ago. There was another edition that was released. There's some new stories in it, but I wanted to talk about this because it's one of my absolute favorite comics, the Metabarons. Alejandro Jodorowsky. If you don't know who Alejandro Jodorowsky is, look up movies like El Topo, Santa Sangre, The Holy Mountain, and there's also a documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune, which is one of my absolute favorite documentaries, and it's about his attempt to make a film adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune back in the 1970s, which unfortunately failed, and all the people that worked on that project went off to work on other films like Alien and Star Wars, and Tron, etc., etc. And many of the things that were gonna be in Dune are in the Metabarons. So essentially, this is the story of a family of warriors that are known as the Metabarons. They are the greatest warriors in the entire galaxy. And it covers the entirety of this one family line, all the way from the beginning days, all the way through till the last Metabaron, who is essentially cursed to live a life of misery and eventually disavows his entire family. It's a very, very fantastical story. It's not really science fiction, it's more space fantasy. You have starships the size of a solar system. You have massive space battles that move so quickly they crack through the barrier of reality and time itself. Alien invasions, ships that are, constantly attacking one planet. There's lots of mysticism, religious iconography. This actually ties into another series that Jodorowsky did called The Incal, and another book also called Technopriest. It's part of what's known as the Jodoverse. Alejandro Jodorowsky has continued to make comics even to this day. He's in his 80s at this point and has the energy of a 30-year-old. He continues to make films, he continues to make comics. He is always prolific, always creating. And there's also been new stories that have been created with this set of characters, recently released last year. It's a fantastic book, brilliant artwork. This is one of the absolute best things you can ever find. There's a foreword in this compendium by Matt Fraction, which is immensely entertaining to read. This is not a cheap book, however. This is published by Humanoids, which is a French company. This compendium cost me about $120. This was not cheap. It is very hard to find. They only release these in very, very small quantities, so you will have to shell out a lot of money to read this. There are, however, other softcover editions that only cover one of the 4 stories. It's 4 books in one, so you're getting a lot for your dollar. There are other books as well called Weapons of the Metabarons, which is a tie-in story that ties in, I believe, to the 3rd book. And there's another one that was recently released by another writer, although it was given the blessing of Jodorowsky himself. It's a little bit dense at times. It can be a bit much to digest. There are points where you do have to take a bit of a break because it can be loaded with captions on every single page. I mean, Jodorowsky really is trying to push not really an agenda, but definitely the idea of keeping an open mind, the idea of mysticism and the everlasting light of God, etc., etc. I am not religious at all, but this book definitely will touch you in a spiritual way. It's very, very interesting to look at. It's beautiful artwork, amazing writing, and it's a lot of fun to read. If you can get through some of the denser parts, it's a very rewarding book. This is not easy to find, but if you can find it, especially if you can get a little bit cheaper, it's definitely worth your time. Check out this book, The Metabarons. Ties into a book called The Incal. There's another book called Technopriest that's also in the same universe. They all tie together to make one amazing compendium known as the Jodoverse. Try to find this if you can. This is one you cannot miss.